From young crew member on the USS Enterprise D to Starfleet cadet, then to Doctor Who of the Star Trek universe. Today we're talking to the one and only Wesley Crusher, Mr. Wil Wheaton himself. Wil Wheaton has started a new podcast adventure. It's Storytime with Wil Wheaton is a brand new weekly audiobook podcast featuring stories that Wil loves. Sounds exciting, right? Well, let's hear Wil tell us about it. If you want to check out the new podcast, click the link in the video description. Wil, thank you so much for joining us here on Trek Zone today. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you today.
Why, thank you. And of course, we're talking about your podcast. This is a new podcast adventure for yourself. You know, before we dive in to the Star Trek questions, because of course we do have them, I was wondering if you could talk to us about your podcast. What's it about, and where can Trekkies and anyone find it?
Sure. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine, one of my longest friends, a friend who I've known since I was a freshman in high school, one of my longtime gamer buddies, he's always been a writer. He has always written just the most amazing, wonderful stories. And all of us were like, someday he's going to get published and it's going to be great. And a couple of years ago, he sent me a note and he says like, dude, it happened. I'm in this magazine. And I was so excited for him. I went to their website. I bought the magazine right away. It came to my house and I was reading his story. I fell in love. I thought, I'm going to record this for him. I'm just going to do an audiobook of his story for him. And I'm going to give it to him because like his birthday was coming up or something like that. When I sat down to do that, it was as if the part of me that has ideas, the same part that created Tabletop, jumped out of me and went, dude, what you got to do is a podcast where you read and narrate short stories with a focus on emerging writers, people who haven't yet had their break. And I thought, that's a really good idea I just had. So I immediately wrote up an email to my creative and business teams. And I was like, what do you think? Everybody thought it was a great idea. Let's go forward a few months. LeVar Burton and I were at the airport. We were going to the same convention. I am a massive fan of LeVar's podcast, LeVar Burton Reads. And I was a Reading Rainbow kid. When we were working together on Next Generation, it was a big freaking deal to me that I was working with LeVar from Reading Rainbow. When Reading Rainbow came to our set, I was so excited. When he wrapped up his podcast, I was really sad because I love hearing LeVar read to me. And I just didn't know how I was going to get that after his podcast was finished. As it happened, I was kind of soft developing my own thing that was going to be really, really small that I didn't think would ever really go much of anywhere. And I asked him if it was okay with him if I did this. Would I be stepping on your toes? Is this stealing your idea? And like practically as I was getting the words out of my mouth, LeVar was like, I would love for you to do this. And I'm so excited for you to do this. And you absolutely have my blessing and I can't wait, and let me know if there's anything I can do. And it was that sort of thing where like, there are these moments with my Star Trek family where I feel like I'm their son and they don't happen very often. And for anyone who knows my story, I was not a son in my house and I was not a son in my family. They were my family. So when these moments happen and members of my Star Trek family make me feel like, oh, that's what it feels like to be somebody's son. It was amazing. I just felt like, thanks, Dad. Thanks for supporting me. Thanks for helping me out. And that's how it all came together. And it was a long, long time to develop. I started out trying to do it all by myself, like I've always done with everything, and quickly figured out that I'm a reasonably competent narrator. And I'm hearing the extra syllable I'm putting into the word narrate. My director is constantly saying, we got to stop and go back. You said narrate and it's narrate. I guess I'm a reasonably competent narrator. I'm not a good producer. I'm not a good editor. I'm a terrible director. And I just went to people I've worked with who I love and respect and asked them if they would help, if they wanted to be part of this. Everybody said yes. And here we are. It's actually happening. I can't believe it.
That is a fantastic story. And also, where can Trekkies find this online, or anyone for that matter?
You'll be able to find it wherever you get your podcasts. One of the
Perfect.
things I really love about the whole idea of podcasting is we put it in one place and then it gets picked up and distributed everywhere that it is convenient for all of the people who might want to hear it. So the usual kind of big places, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. I don't know if Google Podcasts still exists. Places like that will absolutely have it. You'll always be able to find a link to the newest episode at my website at wilwheaton.net. And it'll be easily available for everyone. And we're also we're in the very early stages of working on Patreon.
Nice.
It's an opportunity. I've talked to a ton of podcasters, and I just wanted to know, like, what's this world look like? What's the business space? What do the audiences expect? And everyone I talked to said Patreons are super cool because you can build a little community. You can release your episodes without ads. And then it's a really fun way to add extras that don't necessarily go into a full episode of a podcast. I feel like, there's just not enough time in every day. There's all these things that I want to do. And there's just not enough time to do any of them. So I wanted to keep this reasonably short. I wanted this to be something you could listen to on your commute. So every episode's coming in at under an hour. We're aiming for about 45 minutes so that people can kind of get back to their days. And one of the reasons that I wanted to get this out now, as opposed to just waiting even longer. I don't know if you've been outside. I don't know if you've looked at the world. Here in America, things suck real hard right now. And I felt like it was a great opportunity to give people a little bit of a break from what is going on in our day-to-day lives. Like, we need to be engaged and we need to be addressing the horrors, but we also have to make sure that we're rested and that we are rejuvenated and that we take time to rest. And hopefully this gives people an opportunity to have that time as well.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. I couldn't agree with more as well. Like, looking outside every article at the minute, just you need something positive to like really recharge, I think, and hopefully that's gonna give it to the listeners as well, which would be awesome. So the podcast explores these stories from, I believe you said, emerging like writers and creators, I guess we could say. Can you give us a hint, without spoiling anything, of course, like any sort of topics that get explored? Is it like a running theme, or is it like a variety?
Yeah, so every story we chose, I was very lucky to hire Lynn and Michael Thomas. They're the editors of Uncanny Magazine, and they read a ton of speculative fiction. And I told them that for the first season, which is kind of our proof of concept test season, right? We just need to see if the audience is there. This is such a weird experience for me because I'm so proud of what we made. I had a really fun time doing all of this. The work has been really satisfying to me. And I am very, very hopeful that the authors we were able to get to work with us for this first block of episodes, I hope that they experience some heightened visibility and maybe some sales. And they, there are people who are fans of their work. They just haven't heard them yet. So and I really want to like kind of put them together. So as I was working toward that end, I asked Lynn and Michael to just choose wonderful, wonderful stories for me that were speculative fiction, things that really lent themselves to narration. There are some stories where the way the text is laid out, the font choices, the style choices in italicizing and bolding things make such a difference that you can't really do it as an audiobook. You need that visual element to understand the story. So we stayed away from things like that, and we have focused on the themes that that speculative fiction always touches on. There's our first story is about it's about love, and it's about in my introduction I talk about how there is that old saying about how we will move heaven and earth for the people that we love, and in this story these two people love each other so much that they actually move time. And I thought that theme was really beautiful. There is a story about a group of women who are trying to win a cross-country post-apocalyptic road race to get Each of them has a goal, something that they really want, and then they all have a common goal. And one of the reasons I chose that was the dystopian fiction that I have always loved does not currently feel as impossibly safe as it used to. It almost feels like predictive rather than cautionary, and it's certainly not like delightful diversion. This story about these women who are encountering misogyny and a world that is collapsing around them, and they rely on each other and they rely on themselves to do all of this, felt like something that could have been told today. Just change the setting a tiny little bit. There are stories like that. We end the season with one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever read. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous play. It almost reads like a monologue. If it lands on the audience the way I think it will, and we get that sort of like response based on feedback and stuff, I could very much see myself taking it out and staging it. And I'm really excited about that. But these are things that you would expect from genre fiction. If you're a genre fiction fan, if you enjoy sci-fi, we don't do any fantasy this year. There's a little bit of like quasi horror, but it's mostly sci-fi.
Fantastic. And how many episodes, by the way?
I was aiming for 10, and just some things didn't come together. We ended up with 7, I think. And it's enough time for us to know. So like they always tell you, do not spend your own money on anything ever. And the thing about that is that's great because you save your money, but also someone's telling you what you can do. And you have to answer to somebody. And I didn't want to do this. I figured out how much I could afford to risk on this, and it's significant. And I decided this is worth it. If this risk pays off, then the audience will find us and we'll be able to do this for a really long time. And maybe I can make this part of my job. And if it doesn't, I have had such an incredibly fun time putting this art out into the world, meeting some new people, building some new relationships. And we'll see what happens with it. But my whole point of view on this group was, we got to like shake this down. We got to see, can I do this once a week? Can we put this out there? Is there an audience that wants to hear it? They keep saying that they are there, but we won't know until this has been out for a couple of weeks.
Well, hopefully that audience is there, and like hopefully you get to come back for a second season of like this fantastic adventure as well. So looking forward to it.
I love that. And what I would love more than anything, my dream, if this does everything I want it to do, here is my dream. There is a day in the future where an author we broke on its Storytime with Wil Wheaton has sold their story to a studio, and they're doing it right, and they're going, and we helped them get going. I believe, as strongly as I believe anything, that nobody ever gets anything done on their own. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs someone to say, yeah, I believe in you. Yeah, that's a risk, but I'll go ahead and give that a shot. Oh, I'm so excited about what you're doing. Can I be part of it in a way that helps? And I want to be one of those helpers. I've benefited tremendously from those helpers for the last 20 years of my career. And this is an opportunity for me to make an effort, at least, to give a little bit of that back, and sort of keep that ecosystem of creative people helping creative people thrive.
That sounds fantastic. It's great, like dreams. Hopefully it gets to be like a reality, and one of those stories, or maybe more, get pushed up there somewhere. We really love it.
It would just be so cool. It would just be the coolest thing ever. When we were talking about this, one of the business people I work with said, I think it's a really good idea for you to get some rights on this. Like if someone's going to produce something of it, you should probably have. And I was like, absolutely not. No, shut up. Don't ever say that to me again, or you're fired forever. There are a couple of things that are very important to me in this. The authors are the stars. The stories are where the focus is. And I want them to be out in front of everything. I'm just the voice that makes it all happen, right? All I'm doing is just putting this in front of you, and it is the work that really matters. And I really want them to all be out in front of this, and I want to be supportive of that. This was never about how can I make a big score in the future or something like that. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like there are ways that people can do that sort of thing. That's just not what I want to do with my career, and it's certainly not what I want to do with someone else's sweat and blood, and like I know what goes into writing, right? I know how hard that is. I would never want to take advantage of anything like that. So hopefully, hopefully we earn a reputation in the writing community and at the workshops and at the grad schools, so that we become a destination that people want to pitch.
Could you imagine, like, hundreds, if not more, people sending in stories to, like, pitch for you to read? Like, making it overwhelming at a certain point. But it sounds interesting, though.
Would, wouldn't that be an amazing problem to have? I asked Lynn and Michael, would you like to be part of this going forward? If yes, and would you be willing to like do some slush reading and address like what I hope will be a significant volume of submissions? And they were like, yeah, that's literally what we do in our magazine. So I'm really excited. I'm at that moment in this long creative process where I am equally excited and terrified. It's so close to like, I get to share this with people and I'm excited about it. But look, there's a person who lives in my head, and they sound exactly like the mom in the movie Carrie, and they just scream at me. They're gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you. You're gonna humiliate yourself. You suck. You're the worst at everything. And I'm like, oh my God, you have to stop. I don't need you to tell me that. I tell myself that. It's fine. So that voice right now is like, I know you're excited, but here's all the ways this could go wrong. You gotta stop.
I think it's a common like fear of a lot of creators. I know we get it with videos and things like that. So I can imagine for projects like this, it must be like 10 times like worse in a way.
I've wanted to talk about this the whole time I've been doing it. And I understand that from a business and marketing perspective, that's not the best idea. We need to like release this information in a way that is targeted, that reaches the most people. I genuinely believe that there is an audience that wants to enjoy this, that will enjoy this. We just have to find them, and they have to find us. And to do that, this is what we do, right? Like today, I'm just doing a lot of targeted press, and we're talking to people, and we're like hoping that y'all will help us get our message out there. It's been so hard to just be working on the thing, and I want to jump out onto my blog and be like, holy crap, you guys, this story's so cool, you got to read it. But I did allow myself a couple of weeks ago. I just wrote an email to one of the people that I work with, because we were trying to, we were working on a little thing. And I said, it's so weird. I walked out of the studio today and I had this feeling in my heart and in my chest of like, holy shit, Will, I think this is going to work. And I haven't felt that way with anything that I have done entirely on my own since we started Tabletop. So that same sense of like, I don't know if the audience is going to find it. I know they're out there. I don't know if they're going to find us. And I know that I love what we're making. So even if the audience doesn't find us, the audience that does find us is definitely going to be entertained. And then I get really excited and like hope that a big audience finds us, just so I can keep doing it.
That sounds fantastic. Hopefully that audience is out there and hopefully they do find it. More adventures like this, I think, is great for everyone. It certainly is like a really interesting initiative for those like, writers who haven't been discovered yet. So
yeah. And there are authors in our first season who are magnificent, and they are respected and they are known and they are lauded inside of the speculative fiction community and in the genre fiction community. But I don't know that they've really broken through to sort of a mainstream audience. And one of the things that I've noticed about my career over the last 2 decades, and a lot of the people who have enjoyed my work and come back to my work, is that the audience is real diverse. There is the majority of the audience are people like me, just nerds who love science fiction and love gaming and love things that when we Gen X were growing up were like uncool nerd things. That's the stuff that we really, really love. But there's another enormous audience that is familiar with my work because of the Big Bang Theory and some of the more like kind of mainstream network stuff that I do. And those are the audience members who I think probably don't really know who these authors are. They may not even understand the significance of being a Hugo finalist multiple times. And I'm excited to bring those authors and also just awareness of magazines like Uncanny, Lightspeeds, On Spec, Clark's World, these magazines that I have loved forever, that I never hear people who aren't like already in it talk about. So I'm just hopeful that maybe we can introduce some people to this this thing sort of the same way that tabletop introduced people to board games, who are already going to board game shops and having game nights.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. And like, hopefully those watching right now, we'll have the links on screen and such. Go check it out. Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Star Trek, if that's all right, as my audience would absolutely murder me if I didn't ask you some Star Trek questions. Let's talk about...
is, as you know, one of my absolute favorite things, and I love to talk about it. So let's go. Let's get into it.
Let's talk about the animated series of Prodigy, the lovely young person's animated series. I say young person's. I think that series was for everybody. Like, they say it was a kid's series. Everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
I think it's not a kid's series, and it's one of the reasons, it's one of the things we really struggled with. We talk about just finding the audience, right? I cannot tell you the number of people who have said, I don't know, it just looks like a kid's show. And I've just said, oh my, would you call a Pixar movie a kid's movie? Absolutely not. This is no different. This is an amazing Star Trek series that tells the most incredible Star Trek stories you've ever heard. And it, I love the focus of the narrative characters in the first season of Prodigy is so different from anything I've ever seen in Star Trek. It was so fascinating to me to see. I've always wondered, like, what does life look like for people who aren't in the Federation? What does life look like for people who have heard of the Federation and are curious about it, but like maybe don't trust it or maybe don't want to be involved in it? It never occurred to me to take a group of kids and throw them into something like the Protostar and then watch them go through discovering Starfleet values, figuring out how they want to be part of this. And that message that the fundamental values of Starfleet, which are the fundamental humanist values of Gene Roddenberry, which happen to be my fundamental values, are a really great way to grow and develop as people. God, I wish there was a way that we could just Men in Black the audience and tell them like, yo, if you enjoyed The Incredibles, if you enjoyed Inside Out, like you're gonna love this series.
I totally agree. It is such a shame, it didn't get more of the audience watching, because I watched it. I know a lot of people were on the fence to begin with, but when you get into it, you watch it and you fall in love with it. And the second season rolled around and it was fantastic. But I wanted to ask you, what was it like coming back as Wesley in Prodigy? Like, was it different, going to an animated version of Wesley? What was the adventure like?
I loved every second of it. The first day I worked on that, and I went into the booth, I just remember getting going and having to stop because I was overcome with emotion, because I had not yet done Star Trek Picard. I had gone in and done these things, and I thought this is my chance to be Wesley again. This is the opportunity I have to play this character in a more complicated way, in a more interesting way than I ever got to before. And I never really knew what was going to happen with his arc until a week or so before I went in to record. So I went in for the first episode, and it was just a little bit, we're sort of like obliquely hinting at what's going to come. The animation is incredibly slow. I'm going to choose arbitrary dates. These are not the actual dates. Let's say I go in the first week of January to record the episode. I will go in, I'll be in the studio for an hour, maybe 90 minutes if it's a big episode, and then I'm done. I will not go back for months. Then I'll go back, and if we need to do ADR or we need to do any kind of pickups, we'll do them. Then I won't hear about that episode for close to a year, because that's how long it takes to put it all together. So every time I worked on it, there were these enormous gaps. And then we had gotten to the Devourer of All Things, and we did those episodes, and I loved his character. I loved finding his character. Those episodes we did after Star Trek Picard, which was interesting because Wesley the Traveler on Star Trek Picard is quiet and reserved. I drew a lot from Eric Menyuk's original Traveler, where he was very grounded. You felt like that character's feet went down into the center of the planet, right? Like their roots go into the heart of reality. And I needed to bring that through. And when we went to do the same character again in Star Trek Prodigy, I remember Dan and Kevin Hageman were like, before we get going, a quick reminder that this is animation and it has a different energy level. And I was like, thank you for that, because Wesley from Picard was very much living in me. We started working on figuring out what he was going to sound like. And I had been given an incredible gift by the people at Prodigy. I was allowed to consult and participate in the writing and developing of Wesley's dialogue and his fundamental character arc. And one of the things that I had been writing about for years was that the Travelers were Star Trek's Time Lords, and that the whole idea of being a traveler is that you can move around anywhere in space and time. There are fixed points that you can't mess with, and that the Travelers are sort of responsible for keeping the timeline together, and are responsible for just protecting reality. Like, Wesley didn't know any of that when he joined them. He was just like, cool, I can go do sciencey exploration stuff. Oh, it's that? So that was like a whole different thing that he had to like adjust to and change to. He would react to that in a soft, quiet, dramatic way in Star Trek Picard. In Star Trek Prodigy, I was like, he's kind of like Dr. Ian Malcolm. He's a little bit like Dr. Ian Malcolm, filtered through Eccleston's Doctor, magnified by Tennant's Doctor. I've simplified it, right? I've just taken like an hour of false starts and put it all together into one thing. But man, when I felt that particular Traveler Wesley in my body, and I could feel I was like, oh, this is it. I know exactly who this guy is. Let's go. It was so much fun. And it was so fun to talk with them about what I thought his motivations were, what I thought his point of view was, what he had seen, what he wanted to see, how he was going to interact to the kids. I remember just having this wonderful freedom to riff on things and improv and play with ideas of him. Like, I had this sense that he gets an idea and he chases it to see where it goes. But because of the way he works with space and time and all that, if you're having a conversation with Wesley and he goes, the time that he was looking away, he was gone for like 1,000 years. He was like investigating a neutrino or whatever, and then came back. So I just thought, this dude's head is just full of so much stuff. And he's picking things up and he's putting them down and he's moving things around and he's excited to be there, but also the loom is coming. And so he had that semi-manic energy. It was just so much fun. And when it was all over, when I finally got to see it, seeing, even though it's animated, seeing Wesley as an adult and seeing this character that I helped create when I was a kid, and then helped shape and direct through the writing of this and the direction of it. And then, I mean, I guess the performance is a slightly large part of that whole thing. That it all kind of came together. It gave me this closure that I never knew I needed. It was so wonderful to come back and resolve his character after he'd been kind of sent off to go live in space and time or whatever, and we were never going to see him again. And I always wondered, like, what's he doing? How's he doing? And they gave him that beautiful scene with Dr. Crusher and Baby Jack. And the last thing about this, to close the circle completely, is that the Wesley Crusher exists because Gene Roddenberry wanted his son and other kids to have a character they could identify with on Star Trek. And he wanted them to be able to see themselves on the Enterprise. And Wesley was that avatar. And that was, in my youth, a burden, and it was a gift, and it was unwanted, and it was loved, and it was incredibly complicated and really messy, that I got to come back to Wesley's beginning as an entry point for kids to view this world that says things can be better. It doesn't have to be like this. We have so much to offer each other and the universe if we will just stop trying to destroy things. And Uh, I love that. I love that I am part of Star Trek because Gene wanted kids to see Star Trek. Prodigy exists because kids did see Star Trek. And Wesley on Prodigy just comes all the way back to where he was. It just felt to me, I had this moment where I was able to sort of like take a step back, look around, and just sort of like say thank you to the universe for making that happen and for giving me that privilege.
That is fantastic, and I love that sort of message there. With you saying about the Time Lords of Star Trek, immediately when Wesley appeared on screen, I thought, this is Doctor Who. Like, why is a Doctor Who rocked up? Especially for coat
What did
style as well.
ask?
Like, I loved it.
Right, the coat, right?
Yeah, like
It's great. And if you know, if you look at his shoes, I said, "Can I have one?" They were. I can't remember if someone asked me about this or if I just decided that I was going to ask about it, right? But at some point there was a conversation about Wesley's look and what did I think his look would be like, or did I have any ideas or something like that? And I really wanted him in Doc Martens because Capaldi wears Doc Martens, and we couldn't get the rights. If we put yellow stitches, it was too. It was so I was like, can we use a different color so it's similarly legally distinctly different from Doc Martens? I can't remember if that actually happened, but he's definitely wearing boots, and I squealed when I opened up the email and saw that he was in the pumpkin sweater with the V's on it. Oh, that sweater. And all of those pieces of his costume are things that can easily be assembled in 21st century Earth, which means there is a non-zero chance at some point in my life someone will cosplay as Wesley from Prodigy at a Star Trek convention. It might be me, but it may also be some other person, and that's also a thing that's exciting for me. I just, I'm such a nerd for Star Trek, and I'm a genuine fan of Wesley Crusher. Even if I had not played him, I love what he represents, and I love him. And it is such a gift when someone comes to me at a convention and they're cosplaying as Wesley. It doesn't happen often, and it's mostly women cosplaying as Wesley in the three-striped spacesuit or the gray spacesuit. And I always just feel like, man, what a gift! It's so cool.
that's fantastic. I hopefully we see that cosplay one day. I would love to see that at a Comic Con. Maybe somebody's already made it. Like, Star Trek fans are extremely talented with cosplay, so if anyone's made it, please do send an email or a message to us, as I would love to see it as well.
For real. If you ever see someone cosplaying as Wesley, please send me a photo. I'm Will at willwheaton.net, and I'm at willwheaton.net on BlueSky.
Perfect. We'll put those on screen for you. Well, as we're getting close to our end time today, I wanted to say for my next question, and it kind of fits into Prodigy as well, but this comes from one of our Trek Central crew. They wanted to know, for your entire journey with the Star Trek universe, so far, of course, we'd love to know what was your all-time favorite scene to film. And obviously, this can be animated and live action. We'll leave it to you.
When Wesley and Picard are in the cave and Picard is dying and Wesley is keeping him alive. Some of the best work I did on Star Trek. When I worked with Patrick, it was real important to me, more important than it otherwise was. And I'm embarrassed to admit this, and it's because I was young and I didn't know any better. An actor should show up the way I showed up to work with Patrick for everyone all the time, no matter what. That is the level of effort and commitment and focus we are required to bring to the work. I was a child actor. I didn't want to be an actor. I was a teenager with everything that implies, and I didn't always do that. And I'm aware of it when I see things now. It was always fine. I always got there. We always, people are always happy. But I am aware of times where I was not completely emotionally invested the way that I should have been. But I always was when I worked with Patrick, because I remembered a person who played hockey with Wayne Gretzky talk about how when Gretzky is on the ice with you, you're a better player because you never know where that guy's going to put the puck. You never know where he's going to go and where the puck's going to go. He knows that you're open to score before you do. So you always have to be ready. You never want to let him and the team down. He makes you better. It's the same way with me with Patrick. He made me better. And when we were we were in that set for a couple of days, just the two of us on stage 16 in the pit. And I had to carry a lot of that stuff. That was Wesley really, like the greatest challenge of his life. And I made it real for myself in a way that things just didn't become real for me when I was a teenager. And I think it's some of the best work that I did. I thought it was great character growth. I thought it was great relationship growth. And it was just a privilege to spend that time working with him. That's my most memorable and favorite bit as an actor on Next Generation. My favorite episode to work on, just as an experience, was when we did The First Duty, because I got to work with people my own age for the first time since Stand By Me. So I got to spend a week with Walker and Shannon and Robbie, and it was just us. And that was so much fun. And I didn't have that experience again until Big Bang Theory, at which point I was like, it's really fun to work with people your own age. It's fun to work with your peers. It's not weird. But both of those episodes, for very different reasons, they're really wonderful. They're gifts that I got to have.
Fantastic. Well, Wil, thank you very much for sharing that story with us today, and also the Prodigy stories as well. One last time, where can people find the podcast? If you wouldn't mind plugging that'd be fantastic.
My new podcast is called It's Storytime with Wil Wheaton. Every week I bring you a new piece of speculative fiction that I love. This is very much inspired by the podcast LeVar Burton Reads. And you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. And it will always live at my website, wilwheaton.net, where you can join a mailing list to find out about every new episode. But everywhere you get your podcasts, you'll be able to find it. We also have a Patreon. I don't have the address right now, but it's probably reasonably easy to find. And we're working on some on two different tiers. There's going to be some really fun stuff. There's things that we have recorded that just we couldn't use, or that I was like, oh, we should save that. That's interesting. Maybe people will want to hear that weird random thought, things like that. I'm really excited for the opportunity to have a big open podcast that goes out to the whole world, and also a podcast community that comes together and keeps coming back week after week. I've had the privilege of being part of a few smaller internet communities over time, and I miss that. I miss the kindness and enthusiasm of small internet communities, and I'm hoping we can create that again. Yeah, I'm bad at promotion, so I don't know how to talk about that. I guess that's just the end of it. I'm trying to find a way to wrap it all up. So, smash that like button and be sure to subscribe.
We're using that for a video now. Wil, thank you so much for joining us here on Trek Central today. We're going to send everyone to that podcast. Good luck with it, and hopefully people love those stories.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and thanks for letting me get the word out.
A big thank you to Wil Wheaton for taking the time to talk with us here at Trek Central today. Don't forget to check out Wil's new podcast via the link in the video description. Live long and prosper, my friends.